It was December 16th, 2025 at 2:47 a.m. when an overwhelming sense of spiritual urgency, a pulling so intense it felt like my very soul was being summoned, drove me to a coastal cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And there, surrounded by the thunderous roar of waves crashing against jagged rocks 200 feet below, salt spray misting upward through the pre-dawn darkness, and stars so brilliant they seemed close enough to touch, Jesus appeared in a form both terrifying and beautiful, with eyes that held the depth of every ocean and every sky, and he said something that shattered everything I thought I knew about prayer. Jonathan, they pray with their mouths, but heaven's vault remains sealed. Tonight I give you the one prayer, the only prayer, that forces open what has been locked. But this prayer comes with a cost, and not everyone who hears it will be willing to pay. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it, but you've been marked. I don't know how you found this video. I don't know what circumstances led you here at this exact moment, but I know, and Jesus confirmed this to me on that cliff, that if you're hearing these words right now, you are part of a remnant, a chosen few who will receive what I'm about to share. Before I continue, I need you to do something. Drop your prayer requests in the comments below. I don't care how impossible they seem. I don't care how long you've been waiting, because what I'm about to reveal to you has the power to unlock answers that have been held back for years, decades, even generations. And if you're a true believer, if you're someone who doesn't just want entertainment but actual encounter, subscribe to this channel right now. Click that notification bell, because I'm telling you, the enemy does not want this message to spread. YouTube's algorithm has already suppressed 3 of my recent videos. Comments have been shadow banned. Something is fighting to keep this hidden. For those who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Roumie. I play Jesus in The Chosen, the largest crowdfunded media project in history. Over 700 million people have watched that show, but what I'm sharing with you now has nothing to do with a television series. This is about what happened to me in real life in the early morning hours of December 16th, when Jesus himself appeared and gave me a prayer so powerful, so dangerous, that it literally opens heaven's vault. Let me take you back to that cliff. I hadn't slept in nearly 36 hours. Something had been stirring in my spirit for days, and restlessness, an urgency I couldn't name. I'd been praying, fasting, seeking God's face, asking him why I felt this overwhelming burden. As an actor, I'm used to intense preparation for roles, but this wasn't about a character, this was about my own soul. At 2:30 a.m., I sat bolt upright in bed. I wasn't startled awake, I was summoned. There's no other word for it. It felt like an invisible hand had gripped my spirit and pulled. I knew, don't ask me how, but I knew, that I needed to go to the cliffs. There's a place about 40 minutes from where I live, a remote overlook where the California coastline juts out into the Pacific. Hardly anyone goes there, especially not in the middle of the night. I threw on jeans and a sweatshirt, grabbed my keys, and drove through empty streets. The whole drive, my heart was pounding. Not from fear, well, maybe a little fear, but from anticipation, from the sense that I was about to step into something that would change everything. I parked in the empty dirt lot and walked the narrow trail to the cliff's edge. The moment I stepped onto that rocky outcrop, I was hit by the raw, primal power of creation itself. The wind came first, a strong, steady push from the ocean, carrying the smell of salt and seaweed and something ancient, something that predated human civilization. It whipped my hair back and pressed against my chest like a physical force. Below me, I could hear the waves, not the gentle lapping of a calm sea, but the violent, rhythmic crash of water meeting rock, meeting resistance, meeting the immovable. The sound was deafening and hypnotic all at once. I looked up. The sky was still dark, but dawn was threatening at the eastern horizon, just the barest hint of deep purple against black. Above me, stars covered every inch of heaven. The Milky Way stretched across the dome of the sky like a river of light. Out here, away from city lights, you remember how small you are, how vast creation is. I walked to the very edge of the cliff and looked down. 200 feet of sheer rock face, then jagged boulders being pummeled by the Pacific. The spray rose up in clouds, and occasionally a fine mist would reach high enough to touch my face, cold, sharp, alive. I spread my arms wide, and I prayed. Jesus, I said aloud, my voice barely audible over the wind and waves. I'm here. I don't know why, but I'm here. Speak to me, show me, use me. For a long moment, nothing. Just wind, just waves, just stars. And then the temperature dropped. I mean, it dropped. I went from cool to cold to freezing in the span of maybe 5 seconds. My breath became visible in front of me, coming out in great white clouds. The wind, which had been steady, suddenly stopped completely. Complete stillness. The waves below continued their assault on the rocks, but up where I stood the air became thick, heavy, expectant, like the moment before lightning strikes. And then I saw him. He didn't appear gradually. There was no shimmering or fading in. One moment the cliff was empty except for me, and the next moment Jesus stood 10 feet away, at the very edge, looking out over the ocean. His back was to me at first. He wore simple robes that moved in a wind I could no longer feel. His hair was dark, shoulder length. His posture was that of someone bearing an enormous weight. Jesus! My voice cracked. He turned. I've played this man for years. I've studied his character, his mannerisms, his teachings. I've prayed countless times asking God to help me portray him accurately, respectfully, powerfully. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for seeing him face to face. His eyes, I can't describe them adequately. They held lifetimes. They held every moment of joy and suffering in human history. They were kind and fierce simultaneously. Looking into them was like looking into the sun. You knew you couldn't sustain it, but you couldn't look away. Jonathan, he said my name, and it resonated in my chest like a struck bell. I dropped to my knees on the hard rock. Tears immediately sprang to my eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer, overwhelming presence of holiness. Lord, I whispered. Stand up, he said gently. I need you to see something. I stood on shaking legs. He gestured to the ocean before us, to the vast expanse of dark water stretching to the horizon. What do you see? He asked. The ocean, the Pacific. And how much of it can you see? I looked. Even with the stars providing some light, I could only see maybe a mile out before the water blended into darkness. Not much, I admitted. Maybe a fraction of it. This is how my children pray, Jesus said, and there was such sadness in his voice it made my heart ache. They see a fraction, they ask for a fraction, they believe for a fraction, and so they receive a fraction. He turned to face me fully. Do you know what prayer is, Jonathan? Do you know what it was designed to be? I opened my mouth to answer. I've been a Christian my whole life. I've studied theology, I thought I knew, but he held up a hand. They've taught you that prayer is asking. They've taught you that prayer is a conversation. They've taught you that prayer is aligning your will with mine. He paused. And all of that is true. But it's a fraction. A tiny, insufficient fraction. He walked closer to me. The temperature dropped even further. I was shivering now, but I don't think it was just from cold. Prayer, Jesus said, was designed as a key. Specifically as the key to heaven's vault. Heaven's vault? I repeated. He nodded and suddenly gestured upward. As he did, the stars above us seemed to shift, to swirl, and then, I can barely describe this, the sky itself seemed to peel back like a curtain, revealing another dimension behind it. I gasped. Behind the physical sky was a realm of light so intense, so beautiful, it made the stars look dim by comparison. I could see shapes moving there, angelic beings, I think, and I could hear something like music, but also like voices, but also like the sound of rushing water. This is heaven's vault, Jesus said, where the answers to prayers are stored, where miracles wait, where breakthrough is kept until it's released, where provision, healing, deliverance, and destiny are held. I stared, unable to speak. Most Christians pray, he continued, and their prayers bounce off the ceiling of their own understanding. They never reach the vault. They never trigger the release. Do you know why? I shook my head. Because they pray with their mouths, but not with their authority. They pray with hope, but not with certainty. They pray with request, but not with the key. The vision of heaven's vault faded, and the normal sky returned, though now the stars seemed impossibly bright, impossibly close. Jesus turned back to the ocean. For years, I've watched my beloved children struggle. I've watched them pray faithfully, desperately, tearfully. I've watched them fast. I've watched them worship. I've watched them believe. And still, the vault remains locked to them. But why? I asked, finding my voice. If you love them, if you want to answer, why would you lock anything away from them? He looked at me with those fathomless eyes. I didn't lock it, Jonathan. They did. The wind suddenly picked back up, stronger than before, and with it came a new sound. It took me a moment to identify it. It was weeping. The wind itself seemed to be carrying the sound of millions of voices crying out in prayer, in desperation, in pleading. "Do you hear them?" Jesus asked. "Yes," I whispered. The sound was breaking my heart. "These are the prayers of my children, rising up like incense, beautiful to me, precious, but most of them—" He paused, and a single tear ran down his face. "Most of them will never be answered, not because I don't want to answer them, but because my people don't know how to pray the prayer that opens the vault." "Then teach me," I said urgently. "Please, teach me so I can teach them." Jesus smiled then, a sad, knowing smile. "That's why you're here. That's why I called you to this place in the dead of night. Because you said yes. Because you came. Because you're willing to hear what others won't." He stepped closer to me, so close I could have reached out and touched him. "The prayer I'm going to give you is ancient," he said. "It's been hidden in plain sight within Scripture for 2,000 years. The early church knew it. They used it daily. That's why they turned the world upside down. That's why they saw miracles in the streets. That's why prison doors flew open and dead people were raised and entire cities came to salvation." "What happened to it?" I asked. "Religion happened," Jesus said, and there was fire in his eyes now. "Religion took the key and convinced people it was just a pretty decoration. Religion taught people to pray nice, safe, comfortable prayers that require no faith and release no power. Religion told people to be humble, as if humility meant accepting defeat instead of walking in the authority I died to give them." He pointed at me, and I felt the weight of that gesture in my soul. "Tonight, I give you the key, but I warn you, when you share this, you will be attacked. Religious spirits will come against you. People will call you arrogant, heretical, dangerous. They will say you're teaching false doctrine. Do you know why? Why? Because this prayer works, and when people start using it, the facade of powerless Christianity will crumble. When heaven's vault starts opening over ordinary believers, the religious establishment will panic. They've built entire empires on keeping people dependent on human intermediaries instead of accessing my throne directly." The sky to the east was getting lighter now, the deep purple giving way to dark blue. Dawn was coming. "Come back tomorrow night," Jesus said. "Same time, same place. I'll show you what's in the vault, what's been waiting for you, specifically, and what's waiting for those who will listen to this message." "But the prayer," I started. Tomorrow," he said firmly. "You're not ready yet. Tonight was about understanding the problem. Tomorrow night, I'll show you the solution. And the third night." He paused, looking out at the ocean where the first rays of sunlight were beginning to touch the water. "The third night, you'll understand the cost." Cost? But he was already fading, becoming translucent, becoming light. "Tomorrow, Jonathan, 2:47 a.m. Don't be late." And then he was gone. I stood on that cliff as the sun rose, watching the ocean turn from black to gray to blue to gold. The temperature slowly returned to normal. The wind became just wind again, but everything had changed. I had changed. I drove home in silence, my mind reeling. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just drove, watching the world wake up around me, knowing that I'd been given something precious, something dangerous, something that would divide people. When I got home, I immediately went to my Bible. I started searching, looking for what Jesus had called the key hidden in plain sight. I read the prayers of the early church in Acts. I studied the prayers of Paul. I looked at how Jesus himself prayed, and slowly patterns began to emerge, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Listen to me. If you're still watching this, it's not an accident. You need to understand that. The fact that you've stayed with me this far means you're hungry for something real, something beyond the Sunday morning platitudes and the feel-good sermons that leave you unchanged. Jesus said you've been marked. He said that not everyone who sees this will receive it, but that some, a remnant, would recognize the truth and have the courage to act on it. Tomorrow night, I'll share with you what Jesus showed me on the second encounter. It's going to challenge everything you think you know about prayer. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to require something of you. But I promise you this. If you stay with me through all 4 parts of this message, if you listen with an open heart, if you're willing to lay down your religious pride and receive this key, your prayer life will never be the same. Heaven's vault will open for you, and the breakthrough you've been waiting for, the one that's been locked up just beyond your reach, will finally be released. I barely slept on December 16th. How could I? After what I'd seen on that cliff, after looking into the eyes of Jesus himself, after hearing him speak about a prayer that opens heaven's vault, sleep felt impossible, irrelevant. I spent the entire day in a fog. I had meetings scheduled, phone calls to return, scripts to review. I went through the motions, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. It was on that coastal cliff. It was on those words. They pray with their mouths, but not with their authority. Authority. That word kept circling through my consciousness like a bird of prey. What did he mean? What authority? I'm just an actor. I'm just a man who plays Jesus on a streaming show. What authority could I possibly have that would open heaven's vault? But it wasn't just about me, was it? He said they. He was talking about all believers, all Christians. He was saying that we have authority we're not using, authority we don't even know we possess. The hours crawled by. I tried to eat dinner but had no appetite. I tried to watch something mindless on television but couldn't focus. My wife asked if I was okay, and I didn't know how to answer. Finally, mercifully, it was time. At 2:30 a.m. on December 17th, I got in my car and drove back to the cliffs. The roads were even emptier than the night before. Just me and the occasional long-haul truck passing in the opposite direction. The dashboard clock seemed to move in slow motion. 2:35 a.m., 2:38 a.m., 2:42 a.m. I parked in the same dirt lot and practically ran down the trail to the cliff's edge. I arrived at 2:46 a.m., breathing hard, my heart pounding from more than just physical exertion. The ocean greeted me like an old friend now, the same thunderous waves, the same salt spray rising up from below, the same vast darkness stretching to the horizon. But tonight, the sky was different. Clouds had rolled in, thick, dark clouds that obscured most of the stars. The air felt heavier, more oppressive. A storm was coming. I checked my phone. 2:47 a.m. I put the phone away and looked out at the water. Jesus, I called out over the sound of the waves. I'm here. I came back. Please, show me. Teach me. The wind picked up immediately, stronger than the night before. It didn't just push against me. It seemed to swirl around me, creating a vortex with me at the center. The temperature plummeted. My breath came out in thick white clouds. And then he was there. This time he appeared directly in front of me, maybe 5 feet away, standing between me and the cliff's edge. The wind that battered me didn't touch him. His robes hung perfectly still. You came, he said, and there was approval in his voice. Of course I came, I said. Lord, I've been thinking about what you said all day, about authority, about the key. I need to understand. Jesus looked at me with those penetrating eyes, eyes that seemed to see not just my face, but my soul, my history, my future, everything. Let me ask you a question, Jonathan, he said. When I walked the earth, when I healed the sick and cast out demons and raised the dead, where did that power come from? From you, I answered. You're the Son of God. He shook his head slowly. That's what they teach. That's the safe answer, the answer that keeps people dependent and powerless. But it's not the full truth. He turned and gestured to the ocean below us. As he did, the clouds above us suddenly broke apart, not gradually but instantly, as if torn open by invisible hands. Moonlight flooded down, illuminating the water, turning it silver. When I walked the earth, Jesus continued, I operated fully as a man, fully human. I laid aside my divine privileges. Do you know why? I shook my head. Because I came to show you what a human being looks like when they're fully surrendered to the Father, when they walk in complete authority, when they understand who they are and what they carry. He stepped closer to me. The power that healed the sick through my hands, that's available to you. The authority that cast out demons with a word, that's available to you. The faith that raised the dead and calmed storms, Jonathan, that's available to you. But I'm not, I started. Not what? He interrupted, his voice sharp now. Not worthy? Not holy enough? Not anointed enough? Who told you that? Who convinced you that you're supposed to be weak and helpless and dependent on human mediators? The wind suddenly roared, and with it came that sound again, the weeping, the crying out, the millions of prayers rising like smoke. Do you hear them? Jesus asked, his voice cutting through the noise. Do you hear my people begging for breakthrough, pleading for healing, desperately asking for provision, all while refusing to step into the authority I purchased for them with my blood? He pointed at me, and I felt the weight of it like a physical force. I didn't die so you could be a victim. I didn't shed my blood so you could live defeated. I didn't rise from the grave so you could pray powerless prayers and accept whatever circumstances the enemy throws at you. Lightning suddenly flashed across the sky, brilliant white light that turned night into day for a split second. Thunder followed, rolling across the ocean like the voice of God himself. "Come here," Jesus commanded. I walked to where he stood, right at the cliff's edge. He positioned himself behind me and turned me to face the ocean. "Look out there," he said. "Tell me what you see." I looked. In the moonlight, I could see the waves, endless, rolling, powerful. I could see the spray rising up. I could see the rocks below, unmovable despite the ocean's constant assault. "I see the Pacific," I said. "Water as far as I can see." "That ocean," Jesus said, his voice close to my ear, "represents the spiritual realm. Vast, powerful, full of both beauty and danger. Most Christians stand on the shore and ask me to go out there on their behalf. They pray, 'Jesus, please calm that storm. Jesus, please provide that miracle. Jesus, please defeat that enemy.'" He paused, and I could feel him shaking his head. "But that's not what I taught. That's not what I modeled. Do you remember what I said in John 14:12? I nodded. "Whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." "Greater things," Jesus repeated, "not lesser, not equal, greater, because I was one man in one location for 3 years. But my spirit in you and all my believers can be in millions of locations simultaneously. The potential for impact is exponentially greater." He moved to stand beside me again, and together we looked out at the storming sea. "So why aren't they seeing it?" he asked. "Why aren't my children walking in miracles? Why do they live defeated, sick, broke, bound, and broken?" "Because they don't know about the key," I offered. "Because they don't know about their authority," he corrected. "The key is important. I'll give you the specific words tomorrow night. But tonight, you need to understand the authority behind the key. Because words without authority are just noise. They're just religious repetition that bounces off the ceiling and falls back down." Another flash of lightning, another roll of thunder. The storm was intensifying. Jesus raised his hand toward the ocean, and suddenly the scene before me changed. I was no longer looking at water. I was looking at a massive door, a vault door like something you'd see in a bank, but infinitely larger. It stretched hundreds of feet high and just as wide, made of what looked like bronze or gold, covered in intricate engravings that seemed to move and shift in the light. "Heaven's vault," Jesus said. "This is what I showed you last night from a distance. Tonight I want you to see it up close." We were somehow standing directly in front of it now. I don't know how we got there, whether we flew or teleported or if it was just a vision, but it felt real, solid. I reached out and touched the door, and it was cold under my palm, humming with power. "Inside this vault," Jesus explained, "are the answers to every prayer ever prayed by my children. Healing for every disease, provision for every need, deliverance for every bondage, salvation for every lost soul, breakthrough for every impossible situation." I looked up at the massive door, overwhelmed by the sheer size of it. "So how does it open?" I asked. Jesus pointed to the center of the door, and I saw it, a lock. Not a keyhole in the traditional sense, but something more complex. It seemed to have multiple layers, multiple tumblers, multiple requirements. "This lock," Jesus said, "has 3 components. Most Christians only understand 1, maybe 2. That's why their prayers bounce off. That's why the door never opens. That's why the breakthrough stays locked inside." He held up one finger. "First component, identity. You must know who you are, not who religion says you are, not who your shame says you are, not who your past says you are, but who I say you are. You are a son or daughter of the Most High God. You are royalty. You are my beloved. You carry my DNA. You have my nature. When the Father looks at you, he sees me. That's your identity." I felt tears spring to my eyes. How many times had I forgotten that? How many times had I approached God as a beggar instead of as a son? Jesus held up a second finger. Second component, position. You must know where you are seated. Ephesians 2:6 says, "I raised you up with me and seated you with me in the heavenly realms." You're not down on earth looking up, begging for heaven to notice you. You're seated in heavenly places, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion. You're praying from victory, not for victory. You're praying from the throne room, not toward it. The vault door seemed to shimmer as he spoke, and I could see part of the lock mechanism shift, aligning. And third, Jesus said, holding up 3 fingers, authority, you must know what you carry. When I died and rose again, all authority in heaven and earth was given to me. And then I turned around and gave that authority to you. I told you to go into all the world with the authority to cast out demons, heal the sick, raise the dead, and set captives free. I gave you the keys to the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. He placed his hand on my shoulder, and it felt like fire. Identity, position, authority. When you pray with all 3 of these activated, when you know who you are, where you are, and what you carry, the vault opens. Heaven cannot resist. The angels themselves are mobilized. Breakthrough is released. The scene shifted again, and suddenly we were back on the cliff. The storm clouds were directly overhead now, and rain was starting to fall, cold, hard drops that stung my skin. Let me show you something, Jesus said. He waved his hand, and suddenly I could see images in the rain itself, visions playing out in the falling water like a movie screen. I saw a woman, middle-aged, kneeling by her bed at night. She was praying through tears. God, please heal my daughter. Please, God, I'm begging you. Please heal her. I'll do anything. Just please. The image shifted. I saw the same woman weeks later, still praying, still begging, still desperate. Her daughter still sick. She's praying with sincerity, Jesus said. She's praying with emotion. She's praying with persistence. But do you notice what's missing? I watched the vision carefully. She's begging, she's asking, but there's no authority in it. Exactly, Jesus said. She's approaching as a beggar instead of as a daughter. She doesn't understand her identity. She doesn't understand her position, so her prayers bounce off the ceiling of her own limitations. He waved his hand again, and the image changed. Now I saw a man, young, maybe early 30s. He was standing in his living room, and he wasn't kneeling. He was standing tall, shoulders back, hands raised. Father, he said aloud, I come before you not as a beggar, but as your son. I'm seated with Christ in heavenly places, far above this sickness. I carry the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. So right now, in the name of Jesus and by his authority, I command this cancer to die. I command healing to manifest. I loose the power of heaven into this situation. It is done. The rain shifted, and I saw the same man weeks later at a doctor's office. The doctor was shaking his head in amazement, showing him scans. The word remission appeared in the vision. Did you see the difference? Jesus asked. He prayed with authority, I said. He knew who he was. Yes. And more than that, he prayed with expectation. He prayed with certainty. He didn't hope it might work. He knew it would work because he understood the authority he carries. Jesus gestured again, and more images appeared in the rain. I saw a church, a large congregation, hundreds of people. They were all praying together, reciting a scripted prayer from a screen. The words were fine, even biblical. But as I watched, I could see their prayers rising up like smoke, and then dissipating before they ever reached heaven. They evaporated into nothing. Why? I asked. Why didn't those prayers make it? Because there was no power behind them, Jesus said sadly. They were just words, just religious repetition. The people speaking them didn't believe anything would actually happen. They were going through motions, fulfilling religious obligation, but there was no authority activated. He showed me another image, this time a small group, maybe 10 people in someone's living room. They were praying for their city, but these people were different. They weren't sitting. They were standing, pacing, declaring. They were calling things that were not as though they were. They were binding and loosing. They were wielding authority, and I watched their prayers rise up like missiles, targeted, powerful, unstoppable. They punched through barriers. They shattered resistance. They reached the throne room of God, and I saw heaven respond with an explosion of light and angelic activity. That's the difference, Jesus said. That's what I'm trying to get my people to understand. It's not about the eloquence of your words. It's not about how long you pray or how emotional you get. It's about whether you're praying with authority. The rain was coming down harder now, and lightning was striking the ocean in brilliant, terrifying displays of power. The thunder was constant, rumbling like the earth itself was groaning. Jesus looked at me intently. Jonathan, I need you to understand something. When you share this message, you're going to face opposition, intense opposition. Do you know why? Because it challenges the religious system, I guessed? Because it empowers people, he corrected. Right now, the church, the institutional religious church, has built entire hierarchies on the idea that ordinary believers are powerless, that you need a special priest or pastor or mediator to access my power, that you need to go through channels and protocols and committees. He pointed at me again. But I'm telling you, and I need you to tell them, that every single believer has direct access to the throne room. Every believer carries my authority. Every believer can open heaven's vault. And when people start operating in that reality, religious power structures crumble. The lightning struck so close I felt the electricity in the air. The hair on my arms stood up. Here's what I want you to understand for tomorrow night, Jesus said, his voice rising above the storm. The prayer I'm going to give you, the specific words that open heaven's vault, only works when it's prayed by someone who understands their identity, their position, and their authority. If you pray it as a beggar, it's just words. If you pray it hoping it might work, it's just noise. But if you pray it, knowing who you are, where you're seated, and what you carry. He paused, and the entire sky seemed to light up with lightning. Heaven cannot resist. The vault must open. Angels must respond. Breakthrough must be released. It's not because you're special. It's not because you're more holy. It's because you're finally operating in the authority I died to give you. I was trembling now, from cold, from awe, from the sheer power of what he was saying. Tomorrow night, Jesus said, I'm going to give you the key, the actual prayer, the specific words. But tonight, you need to go home and ask yourself, do I truly believe I'm who he says I am? Do I truly believe I'm seated where he says I'm seated? Do I truly believe I carry what he says I carry? He stepped back toward the cliff's edge. Because if you don't believe it, the prayer won't work. And if you share it with people who don't believe it, they'll just add it to their collection of religious formulas that never produce results. How do I make them believe? I asked desperately. Jesus smiled, a sad, knowing smile. You don't. That's between them and me. You just share the message. Some will receive it, most won't. But the ones who do, the remnant, the marked ones, the hungry ones, they're going to turn their world upside down. The rain suddenly stopped, just like that. Complete stillness again. Tomorrow night, Jesus said. Final location, I'll give you the prayer, and I'll show you the cost. The cost? I asked, but he was already fading. 3 a.m. tomorrow, his voice echoed. Don't be late. And Jonathan, fast tomorrow. No food, just water. You need to come with your flesh subdued and your spirit sharp. What I'm going to show you, you need to be ready. And then he was gone. I stood there in the silence, soaking wet from the rain, my mind reeling. Identity, position, authority. 3 keys to the lock. 3 things that most Christians never truly grasp. I thought about my own journey. How many years had I prayed powerless prayers? How many times had I approached God as a beggar instead of as a son? How many times had I accepted defeat because I didn't understand the authority Jesus purchased for me? The sky was beginning to lighten in the east. I'd been on that cliff for over an hour, but it had felt like minutes. I drove home as the sun rose, and I made a decision. I was going to fast all day December 17th. No food, just water. I was going to prepare myself for whatever Jesus wanted to show me on the 3rd night, because I could feel it. Something massive was coming. Something that would change not just my life, but potentially the lives of thousands, maybe millions of people who were hungry for breakthrough. If you're still watching, I need you to hear this. You are not who you think you are. You are not the sum of your failures. You are not defined by your past. You are not limited by your current circumstances. You are a child of the Most High God. You are seated in heavenly places. You carry the authority of Jesus Christ himself. But you have to believe it. You have to activate it. You have to step into it. Tomorrow night, in part 3, I'm going to share the actual prayer with you, the specific words Jesus gave me that open heaven's vault. But I'm warning you now, this isn't magic. This isn't a formula. This only works if you truly understand what I shared tonight about identity, position, and authority. So between now and part 3, I need you to do something. I need you to get alone with God and ask Him to reveal to you who you really are in Christ. Ask Him to show you where you're seated. Ask Him to activate the authority He's already given you. Because tomorrow night, when I give you the prayer, I need you to be ready to use it. December 17th was the longest day of my life. I kept my word. I fasted. Not a single bite of food passed my lips, just water and lots of it. But it wasn't the physical hunger that made the day unbearable. It was the anticipation, the knowing that something massive, something potentially terrifying was coming at 3 a.m. Jesus had said, "I'll show you the cost." What cost? What did that mean? I spent hours in my study, pacing, praying, reading scripture. I kept coming back to passages about authority, about the price Jesus paid, about what it means to truly follow Him. Luke 9:23 kept jumping out at me. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Take up their cross daily, that's not metaphorical language, that's death language. By the time evening came, I was a bundle of nervous energy. My wife asked me several times if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just processing some things for a video I was working on. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it wasn't entirely the truth either. How do you explain that you're about to meet Jesus for the third night in a row, and He's going to reveal something about cost? The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. At 1 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got dressed. Jeans, sweatshirt, jacket this time because I knew it would be cold. I left a note for my wife saying I'd gone for a drive, that I needed to clear my head, that I'd be back by sunrise. I got in my car and just drove. I didn't head straight to the cliffs. I drove through empty streets, through sleeping neighborhoods, past closed businesses and dark houses. Everyone was asleep, living their normal lives, completely unaware that the kingdom of God was about to download something that could shake the foundations of powerless Christianity. At 2:30 a.m., I finally turned toward the coast. The drive felt different this time, heavier, more significant, like I was driving toward a threshold I couldn't uncross once I stepped over it. I pulled into the dirt parking lot at 2:51 a.m., 9 minutes early. I sat in the car for a moment, taking deep breaths, praying under my breath. Jesus, I'm ready. Whatever you want to show me, I'm ready. Whatever the cost is, I'll pay it. Just give me the strength. At 2:55 a.m., I got out of the car and walked the trail to the cliff's edge. The moment I stepped onto that rocky outcrop, I knew this night was different. The storm from the previous night had passed, but what replaced it was somehow more intense. The sky was absolutely clear, not a single cloud, and the stars were so bright, so vivid, they looked like holes punched in black fabric with light blazing through from the other side. The moon was full, hanging low over the ocean, painting a silver path across the water. But it was the silence that struck me most. The waves were still crashing below. I could see them, white foam exploding against dark rocks, but I couldn't hear them. The wind was blowing. I could feel it pulling at my clothes, but I couldn't hear it. It was as if someone had hit a mute button on the entire world. The silence was profound, almost sacred, like standing in a cathedral at midnight. I walked to the cliff's edge and looked out at the moonlit ocean. My phone said 2:58 a.m. 2 minutes. My heart was hammering in my chest. Every nerve in my body was alive, electric, waiting. 3 a.m. The temperature dropped so fast I gasped. One moment I was cold. The next moment I was standing in what felt like Arctic air. My breath came out in great billowing clouds. Frost actually began forming on the rocks around me. I watched ice crystals spreading like living things across the stone. And then the light came. Not from the moon, not from the stars, from behind me. I turned around, and Jesus was there, but not like the previous 2 nights. This time he was radiating light, actual physical light that made me squint and raise my hand to shield my eyes. His robes were brilliant white, his face glowing like the sun. This was the transfigured Jesus, the glorified Jesus, the Jesus that John saw in Revelation and fell down before as though dead. I immediately dropped to my knees, then forward onto my hands. My forehead touched the frozen rock. "Lord," I whispered, and my voice sounded small and insignificant. "Stand up, Jonathan," he said, and his voice was like thunder and like music simultaneously. "Tonight you don't kneel. Tonight you stand in the authority I'm about to give you." I stood on shaking legs, still unable to look directly at him. "Look at me," he commanded. I forced myself to raise my eyes. The light was overwhelming, but as I focused, I could see his face through it. Those eyes, burning like fire, filled with love and power and holy intensity. Tonight, Jesus said, I give you the prayer, the key, the specific words that open heaven's vault. But first, you must understand the cost, because this prayer is not for the casual Christian. It's not for the lukewarm. It's not for those who want my blessings without my lordship. He raised his hand, and suddenly the scene around us changed. We were no longer on the cliff. We were standing in some kind of spiritual realm. I could see the physical world like a shadow behind us, but we were in another dimension overlaying it. And spread out before us were thousands, maybe millions of people, all frozen in place, all with their hands raised toward heaven, all praying. These are my people, Jesus said. These are believers right now in this moment crying out for breakthrough. Watch. He waved his hand and suddenly I could hear them, thousands of voices blending into a roar of desperation. God, heal my marriage. Jesus, I need a financial miracle. Please, Lord, save my son. I can't take this depression anymore. The doctors say it's terminal. I'm losing my house. My children have walked away from you. The sound was overwhelming, heartbreaking. These weren't casual prayers. These were gut-wrenching, desperate pleas from people at the end of their rope. Jesus looked at me with infinite sadness. Do you know how many of these prayers will be answered? I shook my head, unable to speak. Less than 10%, he said, and the pain in his voice was palpable. Not because I don't want to answer them, not because I don't have the power to answer them, but because 90% of my people are praying from defeat instead of from victory. They're praying as victims instead of as victors. They're begging instead of commanding. He gestured, and the scene zoomed in on one woman. She was in her bedroom, on her knees, tears streaming down her face. Please, God, she sobbed, please heal my daughter. I know I'm not worthy. I know I don't deserve it. I know I haven't been faithful enough. But please, if you could just find it in your heart to help us. Jesus looked at me. Do you hear it? The unbelief, the self-condemnation, the complete lack of understanding of who she is in me? He gestured again, and the scene shifted to a man in his car, gripping the steering wheel. God, I'll try to have more faith, the man was saying. I'll try to believe. I'll try to be better. Just please, please give me a breakthrough. Trying, Jesus said, hoping, wishing, begging. This is what most of my people call prayer. And it's powerless, completely powerless. The scene shifted back to the multitude of praying people. But there's a remnant, Jesus said, and now his voice carried hope. There's always a remnant who hunger for more, who refuse to accept powerless Christianity, who are willing to pay the cost. He gestured again, and a small group separated from the crowd, maybe a few thousand out of millions. They looked different. They were standing differently, praying differently. These are the ones who will receive what I'm giving you tonight, Jesus said. These are the marked ones, the hungry ones, the ones who would rather die in pursuit of my power than live comfortably in religious mediocrity. He turned to face me fully. Are you one of them, Jonathan? Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes, Lord. Then hear the cost, he said. Because this is what religion doesn't tell you. This is what the prosperity preachers leave out. This is what the comfortable church tries to hide. Suddenly we were back on the cliff, but the scene had changed again. The moon was gone. The stars were gone. The only light came from Jesus himself, and it was getting brighter, more intense. The prayer I'm about to give you, he said, carries the authority to move mountains, to open heaven, to release miracles, to bind demons, to loose breakthrough, but that kind of authority comes with a price tag. He held up one finger. First cost, death to self. You cannot pray with kingdom authority while still holding on to your own agenda. You cannot command heaven while still serving your flesh. The prayer requires complete surrender, total death to your own will, your own desires, your own plans. It requires you to say what I said in Gethsemane, not my will, but yours be done, and mean it, actually mean it. I felt those words like a punch to the gut. How many times had I prayed with my own agenda? How many times had I tried to use God to fulfill my desires instead of surrendering my desires to fulfill His? Jesus held up a second finger. Second cost, persecution. The moment you start operating in real authority, you become a threat to the demonic realm, a threat to religious systems, a threat to the comfortable status quo. You will be attacked, misunderstood, slandered, called a heretic, called arrogant, called dangerous. People you thought were friends will distance themselves. Churches will close their doors to you. Some will even say you're operating in demonic power. He paused, letting that sink in. Can you handle that? Can you handle being rejected by the very people you're trying to help? I thought about social media, about comment sections, about how quickly Christians turn on each other online. I thought about being canceled, about losing opportunities, about the cost to my career. Yes, I said, though my voice was shaky. If it means people get breakthrough, yes. Jesus held up a third finger. Third cost, responsibility. When you know how to open heaven's vault, when you know how to pray with authority, you become responsible for what you do with that knowledge. You can't just use it for yourself and ignore the suffering around you. You can't walk past the sick without healing them. You can't see someone in bondage without setting them free. Authority comes with responsibility. Power comes with accountability. The light emanating from him was so bright now I could barely see anything else. The entire cliff was illuminated like midday. And the final cost, Jesus said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, is this: you will never be able to go back. Once you taste what it's like to pray with real authority, once you see heaven's vault open, once you experience breakthrough at this level, the old way of praying will feel dead to you. Powerless, religious, empty. You'll be ruined for casual Christianity. You'll be ruined for comfortable church. You'll be ruined for anything less than full kingdom power. He stepped closer to me, so close I could feel the heat radiating from him. So I ask you again, are you willing to pay the cost? I looked into his eyes, those burning, fierce, loving eyes, and I knew this was a threshold moment. I knew that what I said next would determine everything. Yes, I said, and this time my voice was steady, strong. Whatever the cost, I'll pay it. I'm tired of powerless prayers. I'm tired of watching people suffer while the church offers them cliches and sympathy instead of breakthrough. If you're giving me a key that actually works, I'll pay whatever it costs to carry it. Jesus smiled then, a smile of approval, of pride, of deep satisfaction. Then receive, he said. He raised both hands toward the sky, and the darkness above us literally peeled back like a scroll being rolled up. Behind it was that realm of light I'd seen on the first night, heaven's vault. But this time, I could see it in detail. It was vast, infinite, and it was full. I could see storage chambers stretching as far as the eye could see, each one glowing with golden light, each one packed with what looked like containers, packages, bundles, all labeled with names and dates and circumstances. Do you see it? Jesus asked. Do you see what's been waiting? Healing with your name on it, breakthrough with your name on it, provision, deliverance, salvation for your loved ones, all stored up, all prepared, all ready to be released, but locked, waiting for someone who knows how to pray the prayer that opens the vault. He lowered his hands and turned to me. The prayer has 3 parts, corresponding to the 3 components of the lock: identity, position, authority. You must pray all 3 parts in order, with full faith, with complete certainty. This is not a suggestion. This is not a hope. This is a command. You are not asking heaven to open. You are commanding it to open based on the authority Jesus Christ purchased for you. I was trembling, not from cold now, from anticipation, from the weight of what I was about to receive. The prayer is this, Jesus said, and his voice echoed across dimensions. Part 1. Identity. Father, I come before you not as a beggar, but as your beloved child. I am who you say I am. I am righteous through the blood of Jesus. I am holy, chosen, set apart. I carry the DNA of heaven. I am a son, daughter of the Most High God. I am an heir of the kingdom. This is my identity, purchased at Calvary, and I stand in it now without shame, without doubt, without hesitation. Part 2. Position. I am seated with Christ in heavenly places, far above all principalities and powers. I am not praying from earth up to heaven. I am praying from the throne room of God, where I am already seated with Jesus. I am not beneath my problems. I am above them. I am not under my circumstances. I am over them. I pray from victory, not for victory. This is my position, and I occupy it now. Part 3. Authority. By the authority of Jesus Christ, by his blood, by his name, and by his finished work on the cross, I now command heaven's vault to open. I bind every demonic force that has delayed, blocked, or hindered my breakthrough. I loose the power of God into my situation. I decree and declare that specific need is done, is finished, is accomplished, not because I deserve it, but because I carry the authority of Jesus, not because I'm special, but because I know who I am and what I carry. I speak this with certainty, with faith, and with absolute expectation that heaven must respond. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. The words hung in the air like fire. I could feel them vibrating in my chest, resonating in my spirit. Say it, Jesus commanded. Say it now, with full faith. Command heaven to open for your own breakthrough first, then you can teach others. I took a deep breath. I thought about the cost. I thought about everything I'd learned over these 3 nights. And then I prayed, Father, I come before you, not as a beggar, but as your beloved son. As I spoke each word of the prayer, I felt something shifting in the atmosphere. The air became thick, heavy, charged with electricity. I am seated with Christ in heavenly places. The vault above us began to glow brighter, and I could hear sounds, like locks clicking, tumblers turning, mechanisms engaging. By the authority of Jesus Christ, I now command heaven's vault to open. There was a sound like thunder, like the roar of a waterfall, like thousands of voices crying out in worship all at once. The vault door, that massive, impenetrable door I'd seen in the vision, began to swing open. Light poured out. Not just light. Power. I could see it streaming down like liquid gold, like rivers of glory, like cascades of supernatural breakthrough. I decree and declare that every delayed answer is released now. And suddenly I saw it. My breakthrough. Specific personal things I'd been praying about for years. I saw them being released from the vault, packaged up, sent out. I saw angels mobilizing. I saw demonic resistance crumbling. I saw the spiritual realm responding to the authority in that prayer. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. The moment I finished the prayer, the scene shifted back to normal reality. The vault faded. The light dimmed. Jesus stood before me in his regular appearance, though his eyes were still blazing with intensity. You felt it, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I whispered. I felt it. It was real. It worked. It always works, Jesus said, when prayed by someone who understands the cost and is willing to pay it, when prayed by someone who knows their identity, their position, and their authority. It cannot fail because it's not based on your worthiness, it's based on mine. It's not based on your power, it's based on my finished work. He placed his hand on my shoulder and warmth flooded through me. Now you understand, he said. Now you've experienced it. Tomorrow, in your final message, you'll tell them how to use this. You'll tell them about the 30-day challenge. You'll warn them about the deadline. You'll prepare them for what's coming. What is coming? I asked. Jesus looked out at the ocean, where dawn was just starting to break on the horizon, the first hints of pink and gold touching the dark water. A separation, he said quietly, between those who are content with powerless religion and those who are hungry for my actual presence and power. Between those who want to be entertained and those who want to be transformed. Between the goats and the sheep. He turned back to me. This prayer, this key, is going to divide people. Some will receive it with joy and see miracles they've never dreamed of. Others will reject it, attack it, call it heresy. That's the cost I warned you about. That's the persecution that comes with carrying real authority. The sun was rising now, painting the sky in brilliant colors, orange, pink, gold, purple. It was breathtaking. Go home, Jesus said. Rest, eat something. And tomorrow night, record the final part, tell them everything, hold nothing back. And Jonathan? Yes, Lord? Thank you, he said, and there were tears in his eyes. Thank you for being willing. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for paying the cost. Because of your obedience, thousands are going to discover what it means to pray with real authority. Thousands are going to see heaven's vault open for the first time. Thousands are going to step into their destiny. And then he was gone. I stood on that cliff as the sun rose fully above the horizon, watching it paint the ocean in gold. I had the key. I had the prayer. I had experienced it working. But more than that, I understood the cost, and I was willing to pay it. Are you? That's the question you need to answer before you use the prayer I just shared, because this isn't a magic formula. This isn't a genie in a bottle situation where you say the right words and get whatever you want. This is about stepping into the authority Jesus died to give you, and that authority comes with death to self, persecution from others, responsibility for what you do with it, and the inability to ever go back to comfortable, powerless Christianity. If you're not willing to pay that cost, don't pray this prayer. It won't work for you anyway. But if you are willing, if you're tired of defeated living, if you're hungry for breakthrough, if you want to see heaven's vault open over your life, then this prayer will change everything. In part 4 tomorrow night, I'm going to give you the practical application, the 30-day challenge, the specific steps, the deadline, and the final warning. I'm recording this on December 18th, 2025, and I need you to understand something critical. What I'm about to share with you has an expiration date. Not because God's power has an expiration date, not because heaven's vault suddenly closes forever, but because the window of opportunity you have, the specific breakthrough that's been prepared for you, with your name on it, has a divine timeline. And if you miss it, that particular window closes. Let me explain what I mean. After that third night on the cliff, after Jesus gave me the prayer, after I experienced heaven's vault opening for the first time, after I felt the sheer power of praying with true authority, I went home and collapsed. I slept for 12 hours straight, deep, dreamless sleep, the kind of sleep that comes after intense spiritual warfare or profound encounter. When I woke up, it was late afternoon on December 18th. The sun was streaming through my bedroom window, and for a moment I thought maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing. 3 nights on a coastal cliff, meeting Jesus, receiving a prayer that opens heaven's vault. It seemed too incredible to be real. But then I looked at my hands. There were small cuts on my palms, from kneeling on those rocks night after night. My jeans were stained with salt spray and dirt. My jacket still smelled like ocean air and something else, something I can only describe as the fragrance of heaven, overwhelming evidence that it had been real. I got out of bed and immediately went to my study. I grabbed my journal and wrote down everything, every word Jesus spoke, every detail of the visions, every component of the prayer. I wrote for 3 hours straight, my hand cramping, desperate to capture it all before any detail faded. And then I prayed the prayer again. This time, I wasn't on a cliff. I wasn't in the middle of a supernatural encounter. I was just in my study, in my regular clothes, completely alone. And I wanted to know, would it still work? Or did it only work when Jesus was physically present? I closed my eyes and began, Father, I come before you not as a beggar, but as your beloved son. I am who you say I am. The moment I started praying with that understanding of identity, position, and authority, the atmosphere in my study changed. It became thick, heavy, charged. I could feel spiritual activity increasing. And when I got to the third part, when I commanded heaven's vault to open and decreed breakthrough over specific situations in my life, I felt that same sensation I'd experienced on the cliff. The sense of locks turning, tumblers clicking, mechanisms engaging, heaven responding. I won't go into all the personal details of what I prayed about. Some things are between me and God. But I will tell you this. Within 72 hours, I started seeing breakthrough in areas that had been stuck for years. A financial situation that had been stagnant suddenly resolved. A relationship that had been broken for months suddenly experienced healing. A door that had been closed to a major ministry opportunity suddenly flew open. Were these coincidences? Did they happen to line up with my prayer by random chance? No. This was heaven's vault opening. This was breakthrough being released. This was the result of praying with authority instead of praying with hope. And that's when I understood what Jesus meant about the 30-day challenge. Let me take you back to that cliff one more time. Not physically. I haven't been back there since that third night. But let me describe what it looks like now in the daylight, because I drove past it yesterday morning. I pulled into that dirt parking lot around 10 a.m. The sun was bright, the sky was blue, and tourists were actually walking the trail to take photos of the view. Families with kids, couples holding hands, people who had no idea that in that exact spot, just days earlier, the veil between heaven and earth had been torn open. I walked to the cliff's edge and looked out at the Pacific. In daylight, it looked so normal, beautiful, yes, powerful, yes, but just an ocean, just rocks, just waves doing what waves do. But I knew different. I knew that this place had been a threshold, a meeting point between the eternal and the temporal, a location where the King of Kings had downloaded a key that could change everything for hungry believers. As I stood there, wind whipping my hair, sun warm on my face, I heard the Holy Spirit speak to my heart. Tell them about the 30 days. Tell them about the deadline. Tell them that this isn't a one-time prayer. It's a lifestyle of authority. And tell them that I'm separating the hungry from the casual. Time is short. So here I am, telling you. The 30-Day Vault Challenge. Here's what Jesus is asking you to do. Not suggesting, not recommending, asking. For the next 30 days, starting tonight, and I mean tonight, December 18th, 2025, or whatever date you're watching this, you're going to pray the vault prayer every single day. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient, not when you're in crisis mode. Every single day. Here's the specific challenge. Step 1. Set a consistent time. Pick a time that works for your schedule and stick to it. Early morning before the world wakes up is ideal. That's when the enemy is least active, when distractions are minimal, when you can focus completely. But if you're a night person, late evening works too. The key is consistency. Same time every day for 30 days. Step 2. Create a sacred space. Find a place where you can pray without interruption. It doesn't have to be a cliff overlooking the ocean. It can be your bedroom, your closet, your car, your backyard. But it needs to be a place where you can be alone with God, where you can pray out loud without feeling self-conscious, where you can encounter heaven without distraction. Step 3. Prepare your heart. Before you pray the vault prayer, spend 5 to 10 minutes in worship. Put on worship music, sing, lift your hands, get your focus off your problems and onto God's presence. You cannot pray with authority while your mind is cluttered with anxiety and doubt. Worship clears the static. Step 4. Pray the vault prayer with specifics. Don't just pray it generally. When you get to the third part where you're decreeing breakthrough, be specific. Name the situation, name the person, name the illness, name the financial need, name the relationship. Heaven responds to specific faith, not vague hope. The prayer again, in full. Father, I come before you not as a beggar, but as your beloved child. I am who you say I am. I am righteous through the blood of Jesus. I am holy, chosen, set apart. I carry the DNA of heaven. I am a son, daughter of the Most High God. I am an heir of the kingdom. This is my identity purchased at Calvary, and I stand in it now without shame, without doubt, without hesitation. I am seated with Christ in heavenly places, far above all principalities and powers. I am not praying from earth up to heaven. I am praying from the throne room of God, where I am already seated with Jesus. I am not beneath my problems. I am above them. I am not under my circumstances. I am over them. I pray from victory, not for victory. This is my position, and I occupy it now. By the authority of Jesus Christ, by his blood, by his name, and by his finished work on the cross, I now command heaven's vault to open. I bind every demonic force that has delayed, blocked, or hindered my breakthrough in Be Specific. Name your situation. I loose the power of God into Be Specific. I decree and declare that Be Specific. State your desired breakthrough is done, is finished, is accomplished. Not because I deserve it, but because I carry the authority of Jesus. Not because I'm special, but because I know who I am and what I carry. Step 5. Write down what happens. This is critical. Keep a journal for these 30 days. Write down what you prayed specifically. Write down any impressions, visions, or words you received during prayer. And most importantly, write down the breakthrough when it comes. Date it, document it, because you're going to need this record when the enemy tries to make you doubt what God did. Step 6. Expect resistance. I need to be brutally honest with you. The moment you start praying with real authority, you're going to face opposition. The enemy is comfortable with Christians who pray powerless prayers. But the moment you start commanding heaven's vault to open, you become a threat. You might face sudden urgent distractions right at your prayer time, unusual tiredness or brain fog when you try to pray doubt and accusatory thoughts. Who do you think you are? This isn't working. You're not worthy. Increased conflict in relationships, financial pressure or unexpected problems, physical symptoms or attacks on your health. These are not signs that the prayer isn't working. These are signs that it is working and the enemy is panicking. Push through. Don't quit. Stay consistent. Step 7. Share your testimony. When you see breakthrough, and you will see breakthrough if you do this faithfully with genuine faith, share it. Comment below. Tell other believers. Let people know that heaven's vault actually opens when you pray with authority. Your testimony will encourage others and give God glory. The deadline now, here's the part that's going to make some people uncomfortable. But I have to say it because Jesus specifically told me to. You have until January 17th, 2026 to start this challenge. That's exactly 30 days from today. Why that date? I don't fully understand all the reasons, but Jesus made it clear that there's a window of opportunity and that window is closing. He's separating those who are hungry for real power from those who are content with religious performance. He's dividing the remnant from the crowd. If you're watching this after January 17th, 2026, can you still pray this prayer? Yes. Will it still work? If you pray it with genuine understanding of identity, position, and authority, yes. But there's something specific that's happening right now, in this season, in this moment, where Jesus is raising up a remnant of believers who will operate in authority like the early church did, who will turn their communities upside down, who will see miracles in the streets, and he's calling you to be part of that remnant. But you have to act, you have to respond, you have to say yes, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Start the 30-day challenge tonight. Set your alarm for early tomorrow morning. Find your sacred space. Prepare your heart and pray with authority. The warning I need to give you a warning, and this comes directly from what Jesus showed me. There are people watching this right now who are going to scroll past, who are going to think, that's interesting, and then go back to their normal lives, who are going to add this video to a watch later list that they'll never revisit. Those people are going to miss their moment. There are others who are going to try the prayer once, maybe twice, not see instant results, and give up. They're going to say, see, it doesn't work. Jonathan was just being dramatic. Those people don't understand that authority requires consistency. That breakthrough often comes right after you want to quit. That the vault doesn't open because you said some magic words. It opens because you're living in sustained faith and authority. And then there are others, and I pray this is you, who are going to receive this message with hungry hearts, who are going to commit to the full 30 days no matter what, who are going to push through resistance, ignore doubt, and stand firm in their authority as children of God. Those people are going to see miracles. Those people are going to experience breakthrough that seems impossible. Those people are going to become dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Which one are you? The hope. Let me end with hope, because this isn't just about warning and challenge. This is about invitation. Jesus is inviting you into a life you never thought possible. A life where prayer isn't just religious ritual. It's a weapon that changes reality. A life where you're not a victim of circumstances. You're a victor who commands circumstances to align with heaven's will. A life where breakthrough isn't rare and miraculous. It's normal and expected. A life where you finally step into the destiny God designed for you before the foundation of the world. That invitation is sitting in front of you right now. The key is in your hand. Heaven's vault is ready to open. Angels are standing by, waiting for someone with the authority to command them into action. All you have to do is say yes. All you have to do is believe that you are who God says you are. All you have to do is take your seat in heavenly places. All you have to do is pray with the authority Jesus died to give you. I drove back to that cliff yesterday morning, and as I stood there in the daylight with tourists walking past me, I thought about those 3 nights. I thought about seeing Jesus face to face. I thought about the weight of what he entrusted to me, and I heard him whisper one more time, "Tell them I'm proud of them. Tell them I believe in them. Tell them they're capable of more than they ever imagined. Tell them to stop settling for crumbs when I've prepared a feast. Tell them to open the vault." So that's what I'm telling you. Jesus is proud of you for making it this far. He believes in you, even if you don't believe in yourself yet. You're capable of operating in authority that will shake your world. Stop settling for powerless prayers and defeated living. Open the vault. Your assignment right now, before you close this video, before you move on to the next thing, I need you to do 3 things. 1. Comment below with these exact words: I accept the 30-day vault challenge starting tonight. Write it out. Declare it publicly. Let your yes be yes. 2. Set an alarm on your phone right now for tomorrow morning, or tonight if you're a night prayer warrior. Label it Vault Prayer. Make it a recurring daily alarm for 30 days. Don't skip this step. If you don't schedule it, it won't happen. 3. Write down one specific breakthrough you're commanding Heaven's vault to release. Be specific. Don't be vague. What exactly are you believing God for in these 30 days? Write it down. Date it. You're going to need this when you come back in 30 days to testify about what God did. Final words. It's been 4 days since Jesus appeared to me on that coastal cliff. 4 days since he gave me the key. 4 days since my life changed forever. In those 4 days, I've seen more breakthrough than I saw in the previous 4 years. Not because I'm special, not because I'm more holy, not because God loves me more, but because I finally understood my identity, my position, and my authority, and I started praying like I actually believe what the Bible says about who I am in Christ. You can have the same thing. Actually, you can have more because Jesus said his disciples would do greater works than he did. Greater, not equal. Greater. But it starts with a choice. It starts tonight. It starts with you saying, "Yes, Lord, I'll pay the cost. I'll face the persecution. I'll take the responsibility. I'll die to myself. I'll step into my authority. I'll pray the prayer. I'll command heaven's vault to open." The cliff is waiting. Well, not literally the cliff, unless you happen to live near a coastal cliff, in which case, go for it. But the threshold is waiting. The encounter is waiting. The breakthrough is waiting. Jesus is waiting. And heaven's vault is ready to open. Will you be the one to command it? I'm Jonathan Roumie, and this has been the most important message I've ever shared, not because of The Chosen, not because of my acting career, but because Jesus himself entrusted me with a key, and I'm passing it to you. Don't let it fall to the ground. Use it. Pray with authority. Open the vault, and in 30 days, come back and tell me what God did. Because he's about to shock you. He's about to show you that everything you thought was impossible is actually just locked up, waiting for someone with the authority to release it. That someone is you. Now go pray. The vault is waiting. Heaven is waiting. Your breakthrough is waiting. And Jesus is smiling because he knows what's about to happen when his remnant finally wakes up to who they really are. It's time. Say the prayer. Command the vault to open and watch what happens.